Hello, this is Dave at TitleSearch.com. A lot of times we get a question of exactly how is a title search performed. A title search is a research project where a title examiner or certified title searcher goes into the various official county or land records offices to gather up all the information about a property and then put together what's called a certified title abstract, which is the official document of a title search. All of the documents that are reviewed to go into that title search are absolutely public access documents. Any member of the public can go into the different records offices, pull the different documents, deeds, mortgages, liens, releases, assignments, easements. There are hundreds of different types of documents which could affect the ownership or status of the property. And what happens is each one of those documents that is in that history of the property is collected, put into a pile, and then they're read through individually and analyzed. For example, a prior mortgage which has since been refinanced or paid off wouldn't really pertain to the current title status, but it's still going to exist in that property history. So it's going to need to be read to make sure that there's a valid release that eliminates it. That's what's called the abstracting process. The records that go into this analysis come from many sources. On a typical property, there's 4 or 5 different locations that need to be searched. First and foremost is the recorder of deeds or county clerk, which has most of the real estate records. Deeds, mortgages, liens are the most common ones. You probably also have to search civil court records. In most counties, if somebody has a judgment against them personally, even though it's not specifically attached to a property, on the document, the statute in that state or county might dictate that it automatically affects property owned by that person as long as it's recorded in the civil court records. It won't be in the land records, it'll be in the civil court records. So that has to be checked. The other area that requires investigation is probate records or vital records. If there is a death in the family, a divorce, any other type of family mechanism of change in a family status, that can affect any property owned by that person. For example, if I own 12 Main Street and I die tomorrow, technically I don't own 12 Main Street because a dead person can't own property. It automatically goes to the heirs of that person, whether it goes through a will or it's probated. That property now has a different ownership, and that may affect the status of liens, it may affect the status of mortgages. So the probate records have to be checked. Even if the current owner is still living, prior owners may have had deaths that had heirs acquire ownership. Same thing with divorce. In most states, there's laws that give ownership to spouses upon a divorce or a dissolution of marriage. So where else do you have to check? Well, if you go to the Secretary of State's office, you may find UCC records, which would affect property attached to the real estate. Things like fixtures, things like personal property, even things which appear to be non-real estate related can affect transfers of real estate down the road. So you have to check the Secretary of State's office. You may also need to look at the Tax Assessor's office. Let's say that I own a property and I decide not to pay my property tax this year. Well, I'm not going to have a tax lien maybe for 2 or 3 years. Most counties won't actually put a lien on my property for 2 years down the road. So the lien records will not show a tax lien. However, the tax assessor will show my account as delinquent, which means that affects the property status. So the tax assessor or tax collector needs to be checked. What about zoning? Let's say, for example, I have an encroachment on my property or I build a non-permitted building. I may have an infraction in the zoning records. That may be something that's going to affect the title and need to be checked. So a full and thorough title search, if that's what's requested by a client, you need to check all the records that could affect the property according to the scope. Is it a current owner search, chain of title? What's the scope of the search? And make sure it's done correctly. And also to read through the documents. Just because there's a deed to a property transferring it from me to another person doesn't mean that in the language, the fine print of that document, it says that after 3 years it automatically reverts back to me, or after 2 years it goes to John Smith. Those critical details in a document may change the search. So if you just look at the deed header itself, buyer, seller, amount, you may be missing some important information. That's the basics on how to do a title search. If you need more information or have questions, you can reach us at our website, TitleSearch.com, and we'd be glad to help.